Welcome back to the Paranorm Girl podcast. I am your host, Kristen. We are back with the second half of my conversation with MUFON's National Director for Australia and New Zealand, Dr. Roger Stankovic. Our first part together was uploaded Tuesday. If you haven't listened to it yet, I recommend you do before starting this one. Totally different information. He told me about some really intriguing sighting and encounter cases that he had investigated and went into details about the phenomenon of animal mutilations, like the regular markers seen in those types of cases, and also some anomalous aspects that have been seen as well. It was really, really interesting information, so be sure that you catch it. Support for the Paranorm Girl podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. With summer here in full swing, let's take a second to talk about self-care. When it comes to making an impression, proper grooming is essential to looking and feeling your best when you walk into a room. That's why the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped, are committed to helping men around the world walk and talk with some swagger this summer with the best grooming tools on the market. Help him join the 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and enjoy this offer. 20% off plus free shipping with the code PNG at manscaped.com. Don't neglect your beautiful self and get right this summer with Manscaped. For the sleekest version of yourself, Manscaped has you covered from head to toe, starting with their brand new Beard Hedger trimmer. With one guard and 20 adjustable lengths, it is the perfect travel companion fit to take care of your beautiful mane wherever you go. Next in line, who can forget about their signature Performance Package 4.0? Included in this ultimate grooming bundle is the star of the show, the Lawnmower 4.0, which is equipped with skin-safe technology to minimize nicks and cuts in all your sensitive areas. So, once again, Manscaped supports the Paranorm Girl podcast so much, they provide an exclusive offer to my listeners. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PNG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PNG. Feel like yourself again and take charge of your life with Manscaped. All right. Picking up right where we left off, please enjoy the second part of my conversation with Dr. Stankovic.
On the David Grusch, that being said about David Grusch's interview, like this felt like a really just monumental moment, like just an incredibly important interview. And yet it seems like there's a lot of folks who don't really grasp how important it actually is. So, I'm glad that you brought it up because I did want to ask you about some of those points that they covered in that interview, that talk together. He said some pretty interesting, pretty important things, talked about dead pilots, non-human intelligence. This is something that we've all suspected. We all know, but, you know, it's just never been said so blatantly like that before. Yeah. He did say, though, he seemed hesitant to label it as extra-terrestrial. And that was curious to me. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that distinction between non-human intelligence and extraterrestrial? He didn't want to go there.
Well, if he meant extraterrestrial as in just in the distinction between something being interdimensional or extraterrestrial, but they were classifying as non-human intelligence. So I find it hard to believe that something can be interdimensional and crash on Earth. Like, so for example, if you've got something that has the ability to travel interdimensionally, surely knows how to overcome what do we call strong nuclear forces, which are those forces that hold atoms and neutrons together. And that's what, if I can bang my hand on this table here, that's what's stopping my hand from going through that table, the strong nuclear forces. I'm not a physicist, but at least I know that. So if they can travel interdimensionally, Why do they crash? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to believe that they are actual nuts and bolts objects, which have probably devised a way of getting to travel faster than the speed of light by manipulating space-time, and how they do that I don't know, and communicate instantaneously via maybe quantum entanglement communication. We can't do it we don't have the facilities to do that here, but maybe they've devised a method whereby they can modify or manipulate the properties of quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication, because you've got to communicate. You can't just be going out into space and not communicating with your base for origin. You just can't do that. I mean, we're still communicating with the Voyager spacecraft, as far as I'm aware, that left the solar system quite a long time ago. So I don't know how they do it, but I think it's physical craft, and I don't know whether it's interdimensional. I think that's what he means by it not being necessarily extraterrestrial. It's hard. I think the general, I don't know whether I can speak for others, but I think the general consensus within the UFO community is that they are extraterrestrial, not interdimensional, but just depends upon who you speak to. And I mean, how do you explain the crashes?
Right.
How do you explain the crashes if they can manipulate dimensions? Doesn't make sense.
Sure. And I think the skeptical argument on that is, if they're from another planet, they're so advanced that they can come here and then they crash. Well, I mean, we think we're advanced and and we crash.
Yeah, well, that's not necessarily an issue. Even if they do have the ability to come here from a distant planet, doesn't necessarily mean that they won't crash. It's just like, the space shuttle is one of our most advanced space vehicles, and yet that crashed twice, the Columbia and I can't remember the name of the other space shuttle. But this is, the space shuttle was one of our, and the Concorde, it doesn't matter how advanced the vehicle, the probability of something going wrong is still there, no matter if you're on Earth or if you're on a distant planet in a distant solar system or on a different galaxy. Sure. That's my, it's just a matter of probability.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. Well, they also talked about, and I've heard this from other people too, like I think Lou Elizondo has talked about this as well. They talked about the malevolence to some of these encounters and cases. And, like I was speaking about the benevolence before, so it kind of caught me off guard, and it makes me a little hesitant because I fear that it's pushing a threat narrative. But do you think there's really anything to that? Like, is that something that we should really be getting behind, that there is a malevolence here? Let's be careful with this. Let's be super, tentative about making contact. How do you feel about that? Being thrown in the ring.
I'm in two camps in this regard, because I think that they have, if they are abducting people and if they are mutilating animals, and there are cases of human mutilation, well, then that's a form of benevolence. Benevolence in the sense that, okay, if they have the technology, why didn't they take over ages ago? So there's two sides to the argument. I can understand both sides, and I did listen to that recent interview with Lou Elizondo about, and he said, "Oh, why don't you put a hat on and imagine that you are now in the military, and basically you know that these objects are flying around in our skies with impunity, and we don't know, we have no means of controlling them." And I can't remember the exact interview, I'm sorry, but basically he was implying that there was some security risk in the sense that we don't know how to control something that's flying with impunity in our air and in our skies, and so I can understand that he tends to push that narrative, whereas I think that Greer tends to push the opposite narrative, to say that he wants to contact them with the C5 protocol, and he's saying that basically. What I was saying before, that if they wanted to take over and they wanted to interfere with us, then they would have done years ago, because they have the technology to do that. Or maybe it's a surreptitious thing where they have actually, if you believe in it, and I don't know what to believe in terms of human hybrids and whatever. If I state that, then I just don't know.
Yeah.
But if they're taking over in a surreptitious way by mixing our genetics with theirs, and then trying to create hybrids and take over in a fairly cryptic way that we don't really know, we can't detect. I don't know. Maybe it's such a complex argument that I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. David also talked about he was saying that the main reason he was on there, the U.S. has secretly been retrieving these craft and reverse engineering for decades, like we talked about. He talked about this secret government program that's been doing this for 90 years. Do you have any insight or suspicion as to what that means? What is this program?
So basically, he's referring to special access programs. So I started looking at that a few years back, where there was a leaked memo called the Wilson-Davis memo. I think you might be aware of that.
I've heard of it,
but
yes.
it referred to special access programs, where in 1997, there was a meeting between Stephen Greer, Admiral Wilson, Thomas Wilson, and Will Miller and a few other people, where they were looking into special access programs that were hidden in the Pentagon, or the rogue access programs, are called unacknowledged special access programs. So there's programs within the Pentagon that are known, that you don't have to keep secretive, and there are special access programs which deal with sensitive issues that or matters that they're dealing with when they're developing something like a secret aircraft or whatever that they're dealing with. This meeting alluded to a hidden SAP which was dealing with reverse engineering of extraterrestrial or off-world vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilson at the time was quite upset that he was very high up in the Pentagon, J2, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he had no access to this special access program. So he decided to make some inquiries, and he pushed to gain knowledge and failed. And so what happened after that is that he contacted Eric Davies, who, and in a way, Eric Davies was well known through NIDS and whatever, and he was working with Bigelow and Skinwalker Ranch, and he was a well-known astrophysicist. So he requested that he have an interview with Eric Davies at the back of the EG&G building in a car. And so Eric took notes. Apparently, this is allegedly took notes of the conversation. And in a way, basically, I think what Thomas Wilson wanted to do is to disclose his efforts to try and break into a special access program dealing with the reverse engineering of off-world vehicles to Eric Davies. But he qualified, the caveat was that if you tell anybody what I've said to you, I'll just completely deny it. And that's what actually happened. So Eric, the notes actually were distributed to NIDS, and then ended up in Edgar Mitchell's files. And when he passed away in 2014, a guy from Australia actually located the actual document, and Richard Dolan actually disclosed or leaked the document out on a podcast that he did shortly after it was the document was given to him, and he said he'd actually seen a couple of pages of the document several years before. So that's where it all started. That's where we sort of got an inkling of the fact that there were these special access programs that possibly could have, reverse engineering attempts by corporates through aerospace industries linked to the Pentagon. So there was a link to the Pentagon. It might be, a couple of people that are in the know, and certainly Wilson was not in the know. He wasn't on the bigot list, so-called bigot list. And so that's where it began. So that's going way back into 97. And then there was a leak of that document later on in 2005, I believe that Richard Dolan had seen it. And then later on, it was leaked in 2019, I believe, by Richard Dolan, when James Rigney had given him had sent him the document, and so basically, we had an inkling that there were these special access programs or unacknowledged special access programs within the Pentagon, but also, that they were associated with the Pentagon because there were people that were working at the Pentagon that had known about these special access programs, but they were divested to aerospace companies. So when an extraterrestrial vehicle had crashed, there was a program to completely cover it up, take the vehicle, and then transport it to a corporate aerospace company like Lockheed Martin,
right?
And the government would wash their hands of it and say, okay, well, we want to know what's going on with it, but we don't want to have, any formal association with it, because basically the government couldn't keep it, because you can't. If an aerospace company has one of these vehicles, you can't lodge a FOIA request through the company. So basically, it enables the government to dodge FOIA requests for access to information regarding these programs. And so that's what he's referring to. He's referring to special access programs. So they're buildings that are located within aerospace companies or outside of them, and we don't know where, possibly underground, where these vehicles are kept. And Grusch has information from extremely reliable sources to say, and these are actual people working within the programs, that he knows. He's been given information about the whereabouts, the actual code to the program, the people that are working on it. So he has very, very specific information that is given to Congress under oath. The reason Arrow didn't, the all domain, I can't remember the acronym.
I do.
All Domain Resolution Office, Anomaly Resolution Office. Yes. They didn't have a Title 50 access, so basically, they're not privy to the information. Although Kirkpatrick could have pushed for Title 50, I feel that David Grusch did go to Sean Kirkpatrick and told him about what was going on, but he had to turn a blind eye. Because they didn't have the Title 50 access. So he's referring to special access programs that are waived. They're not acknowledged, that they get funded by black budget money. And this is where Kirsten Gillibrand is now putting a stop to it by amending the defence bill by saying that for the fiscal year 2004, that basically the National Defence Authorisation Act will now stop funding aerospace companies that have these objects and that are, unless they disclose that they have them. I don't see how that's going to exactly work unless the Congress actually has every detail about where they're located. So they must know where they're located,
right,
and where to find them. Because if you didn't, how would you enforce that rule that, you won't be funded, and you've got 6 months amnesty to actually tell us, but within that 6 months, they could be divested to other areas. They could be moved, hidden somewhere, given to someone else. I don't know. So it could turn out to be a big furphy, because by the time they get around to, rating them, basically they could have divested all the material, and then it makes us look like absolute fools, that it was just a big hoax, or some psyops. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Gillibrand is bluffing here. And if David Grusch has all those locations and all that information, and he is free to tell them everything, I think that is definitely not a bluff. And so that's given
No,
me
I don't think
hope
it's a
that,
bluff. No.
Yeah. Would you call it a flurfy?
A furphy? No, I think she's she must know that there's something to this, along with Rubio and Gallagher and a few others. I think that they know a lot more. The Gang of Eight also, they know a lot more about what's going on that they can't divulge to the public. So basically, I think they're serious about it, and I just think that I'm not sure whether, if they do happen to know about this information and know about the fact that there are craft and they've located them, whether they're going to, give that information to the public, or they're going to make that public, that yes, we have located craft in SAPs that were hidden for years. I mean, that would open up a Pandora's box, I reckon. I think it'd be just like opening a can of worms, and there'd be a lot of questions about it. It could be that it could open up questions which are quite sensitive, relating back to abductions, and because we have the reality that these craft actually exist, because physically we've got evidence, and then that there's a multitude of questions that can be asked surrounding the fact that we've got the craft, they're here, we've got the pilots. So are abductions real? Have they occurred? Have people that have gone missing? Is the phenomenon related back to missing people? Which there's thousands of people that go missing, and there's the missing 411 that David Paulides is his theory that in his recent documentary about the fact that there might be a UFO relation to missing people. It opens up a big can of worms, and also there's the impending threat, that they could be malevolent. How do you answer that question? So.
Well, we'll know soon enough, or we won't, and they won't share anything. It's all just kind of a waiting game. It's very exciting time to be alive right now, though.
It is. It's a very exciting time, and I'm so glad that they've done this now, and it's basically you've got your senators to thank for the push towards the disclosure. I think it's great that America's doing this, and we're all looking to America now, because our government is just totally useless, I think. In terms of...
Well, we're only 90 years late on it, so. Well, how do you think it's safe to assume that one of those craft retrieved is Roswell's?
It could well be. I heard about Roswell in 87, and I have been following it for quite some time, the story for quite some time. Obviously, haven't done as much research as some of the ufologists that like Stanton Friedman, or I did contact Stan Friedman when he was alive, and there was some information given to me that I passed on to him by an anonymous source. So we did talk about things, and there were documents that were released and about the Roswell crash, and then the Air Force came out with the case closed publication. There were 2 publications, but they were saying, look, we did lie. It wasn't a weather balloon. It was actually a mogul balloon, which is a train of balloons that crashed, apparently, that was spying on Russian nuclear explosions. So I still don't believe the story that it was a mogul balloon. I believe that it must have been a craft of sorts, because of the evidence doesn't point to mogul balloon being a possible explanation, because it was they pinned it down to flight number 4, which it wasn't launched on the day that it was supposed to be launched. And there's a researcher called David Grusch who did a lot of very interesting work with wind direction analysis on the day that it was supposed to have crashed on the Foster Ranch, and he worked out that basically there's no way that if this balloon was released on the 4th of June that it would have landed on the Foster Ranch, or whatever date. I'm not sure of that date. Sorry, but if the mogul balloon answer, the Air Force think that's a good answer, well then why weren't they tracking these mogul balloons if it was so sensitive?
Yeah.
You know, why cover something like a mogul balloon? Like, if it's so sensitive, why didn't they track them and pick them up? You know, apparently they used to scatter the whole countryside, and people knew, you know, Jesse Marcel knew what a mogul balloon was.
Right.
He couldn't, you know, mistake it for the material that he found. It just doesn't make sense that this is a mogul balloon. And I think that they could have the craft, the original craft. It'd be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just can't imagine. It would just blow my mind if you know, they went in with cameras and then just, look, this is the actual Roswell craft that we found.
There it is.
Yeah, and this is the craft that crashed in Corona, and this one, and you know, Magdalena, and you know, like, and this is the Aztec craft, part of the Aztec craft, etc., etc. I can't imagine it happening. It just, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's such a sensitive issue, and then people, I don't know. People say, "Oh no, we can take that sort of stuff." You know, but really, I don't know. I just, you know, like, look how we took COVID. You know, like, it was just such a disastrous.
Yeah. We did not take that well as a
didn't take it well, and people,
race.
You know, people hoarding stuff like toilet paper and all, doing ridiculous things.
But we can take crash craft and abduction.
It's not fine. A problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, as much as I want disclosure and that kind of disclosure, I just so want to know. I just want to see it. I want to know. I think you might be right on that. Yeah, we probably wouldn't take it very well. We probably won't take it the entire scope of it. Not at all.
Yeah, you got to look at all the variables, and it's a multifactorial thing where basically you think, okay, well, you know, the general public don't know what to think about it, and they find it incredulous, but they haven't actually been studying it. They're just on the outskirts of the ufological society, and they're sort of like, basically, when they hear it, they think, oh, rubbish, or who cares, you know. Like, I'm thinking, well, I can sort of understand that attitude, because if you haven't been studying it for the time that I have, or other people have, you could take a flippant stance when it comes to the topic, but for other people, in the field who have been studying it for such a long time, it's a moment of like of utmost importance to us, and so.
Yeah. No, no, because I have crossed that line officially. Like I can see how easy it is to be very flippant about this or not want to dig into it. So you think you know what's going on, but you really don't. There's so much information to digest, and it's so overwhelming. But as soon as you start getting into it, and you start listening to the stories and understanding the different aspects of the phenomenon and how literally impossible it is for any of this stuff to happen, the way that skeptics, Mick West, would explain it. It's it's kind of like once you open your eyes, you can't close them again. It's kind of like that, right, where it's a paradigm shift a little bit, but
it is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So it's also they talk about ontological shock. Well, basically, it is ontological shock to think that you were leading your life without this aspect in your life since you were born, and then all of a sudden, you realize that, oh no, your life has been totally different. If you, like, reality is not what it seems. We've been living with this for millennia, and basically we didn't know about it, and it's the ontological shock of actually experiencing that, or when reality hits you, you actually it's trying to I don't know, grasp the reality of the situation in terms of what you lived your life previous to what it is now, and if disclosure happens. Sorry, I haven't put it succinctly, but
no, that was I got all of that, and I will be quitting my job immediately. If it should happen. Well, sir, this has been absolutely just mind-blowing and outstanding to speak with you, and it's been such an honor today. We've gone like almost an hour and a half. That's awesome.
Oh, right.
Well, that
I told you.
No, I love it.
Shut me up.
No, I could talk for hours and hours about this stuff, but I think that's a great place to bring us to our final segment, final questions, final thoughts, and then we'll take it out.
Sure.
All right. So these I've prepared for you. Just want your thoughts or speculations, however you want to answer them. First question. I guess I'll throw this back at you because this is what we were just talking about. Following first public, undeniable to the masses contact, what are some of the changes you expect?
So let me rephrase that question. So what you mean by contact is not disclosure. Is that what you? Can you just rephrase
it? An undeniable.
All right.
We know there's ontological shock. We now know we can't. The public cannot deny it anymore.
So the public cannot deny it. Yeah. Okay. So just to start off with, the debunkers will deny it. So you'll find out that debunkers will deny it.
Okay.
And even if it's coming from the president's mouth, they'll request, testing of the craft and testing of the beings, and then they'll even deny that. So they're going to be in constant denial. But I think that the public will take it fairly well initially, and then when the penny drops and the actual reality of it sinks in, then we're going to see a change in everything in terms of religion. And the Vatican maybe, I don't know, they're a bit more progressive. They're taking on board the fact that we've got, God has got not just us, but he's got, we've got brothers and sisters out in space. Okay. And, meet your brothers and sisters, so basically Some religions won't take it very well because they believe that these extraterrestrials are demonic in nature. Mm-hmm. So you've got that aspect of it. I think that probably stock markets will crash eventually. When there's ever uncertainty about, the civilization not being able to control what's in our airspace, that's a sense of uncertainty. And whenever there's uncertainty, you get, the stock market crashing, countries going into recession, people panicking because they think, okay, well, how safe am I when I walk out of my house? People have been abducted. There's, who knows? I think it's a difficult one. You'd have to, I'm sure that experts have done that scenario where they've looked at all the different combinations and permutations of what can actually happen in society after disclosure. Mm-hmm. And it's probably some of it could be good, but I can see a lot of it being not so good. It's difficult for me to actually think of every possible thing that could happen. But I think there will be a sense of insecurity, definitely. And it's in a sense of awe that, oh my God, we do have extraterrestrial life on Earth and it does exist in the cosmos. Mm-hmm. And although, a lot of people may have believed that, because, how could we be the only life form in the entire universe?
Yeah.
Some skeptics are saying that, basically, there is life out there, but, for a life form to be, so for example, we're here on Earth and we've got another planet in a distant galaxy that has got a civilization that's intelligent. The chances of two civilizations being at the same stage, or one being further ahead than the other is extremely rare because the universe is something like 14 billion years old. Mm-hmm. So it's the ontological shock of realizing that basically we are not alone, and we don't have any control. And these are beings that are actually, immensely more intelligent than we are. Mm-hmm. And here we are thinking we're at the top of the food chain, in terms of intelligence, and we're not. And we can be controlled. So, we'll go down that peg, that one peg where, there's this higher form of intelligence that can control us, and that feeling is uncomfortable,
Yeah.
As to whether they would control us or not, they have the potential to do it. So,
Well, I think that way too. Like if they were going to, they would have by now, kind of thing. So yeah, I'll hold out hope. I'm the utmost optimist about most things. So I'll be looking for a good change. I'll be looking for that silver lining.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Yeah. In the aftermath of Grusch's interview, what's something that's been set into motion, or some things that have been set into motion that are taking place? I'm going to say behind the scenes. I don't mean like covertly or in secret, but just taking place that he's set into motion that maybe the bigger public isn't quite aware of, isn't quite keeping up with. Like what's now taking place in government? What's taking place in Congress? What, thanks to David, is happening now?
Well, thanks to David is basically that he has had the strength and the courage to actually come forward on a topic that's extremely sensitive, and to try and find out what's the reality behind what everyone's been talking about in terms of these crashed vehicles that supposedly we have. And basically what's happening is that he's approached Congress. He has put the wheels in motion for disclosure. And sorry, what was your question about what the public doesn't know that's going on right now?
Right.
With regards to, okay, so basically, since he's gone and testified under oath to Congress, Congress is changing the legislation or amending the defense bill to allow us to get one step further in terms of being able to determine whether this is a reality or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Congress is trying to flush this out. They're trying to flush it out to see, is this actually what is happening? And I find it hard to believe that it's not, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to have to explain why this happened. Why did this happen? Why did Grusch get informed by people who are in very high places in intelligence as to why they believed that this was going on, that this the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial vehicles was happening? Why are they pulling some sort of hoax? Is it a psyops, or why is it a psyops? If it is a psyops, why are they doing it? It just doesn't make sense that this could be a psyops. So I would tend to err on the side that this is real. This is something that is actually, it is real. So basically, what's happening in Congress now is that there will be a point in time where something will be disclosed either to Congress themselves, and it'll stop at Congress, and they'll know. And the only way it's going to get out to the public is by leaks from Congress. And that's how the public is going to be informed. Not the majority of the public are not interested, or maybe let me rephrase that. I think the majority are actually interested, but because it's so sensational. But I don't think the way that this is going to be disclosed is by a slow drip method, and basically it's going to leak out rather than President Biden going on a podium saying we actually do have craft that are hidden in special access programs. We found that out. Congress has worked it out. That's not going to happen, I don't think. And basically, I think that we're going to get closer to knowing a bit more, and with more whistleblowers. So we're going to get closer to the reality of and we're going to know a little bit more about the actual special access programs, because no one knows anything about them. We don't know where they're located. We don't know who runs them. We can guess. Battelle, the Battelle Institute. We've got Northrop Grumman. We've got Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace. We've got all those obvious ones where perhaps they have special access programs, but we don't know any details about where they're located. Are they underground? Are they on site? Are they off site? Nobody tends to know anything about them. And this is the big disconnect between what we know, like all the data we have on UFOs is from civilian and military reports. And then we have this huge quantum leap into actual hardware and actual bodies. But there's a disconnect between the two. And I don't know, that's a paradox. I don't know how to solve that. How do you have all this information through 90 years of, public reporting, even presidents reporting seeing UFOs, et cetera, and then you've got the other side where you've got data, but it's not directly relating to actual physical evidence. And then you've got physical evidence, which is supposedly sequestered into these SAPs, which we don't know any information about. It's paradoxical that there's no trail between the two, or this is being solved now with Grusch's whistleblowing, is that now the dots are connecting between, that are resolving this disconnect between the data that we have that by the public and military, is connecting it to the physical hardware by the whistleblowing acts that are happening now. And then it's just a matter of executing that to actually getting to the hardware. But when that happens, it's a matter of, do you disclose it or not? This is going to be a big decision by Congress to, have they thought about this? If they do find something, what are they going to do about it? Are they going to disclose it or not? Is it, if they do disclose it, is it going to cause a lot of problems?
Yeah, absolutely. All well said.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, sir. Final question. It'll be an easy one for you. Since this topic, UFO ET phenomenon, is so overwhelming, there's so much to it, and a newcomer might not even want to start because it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a steep learning curve here.
Yeah. Where should they start? Where would you recommend they start?
Yeah, I've got to scratch my head with that one.
Oh no.
It's a good question. I started by reading books, and I don't suggest that they start doing that. But, you've got multimedia, you've got social media now, and basically, if they go onto Twitter, if they go onto Facebook, there's tons of information on Twitter. Some of it can be, dubious, and people are just stating things. But then people, sometimes post things about historic events and like I do a lot of historic stuff on Twitter, where I'll post something about Roswell, or I'll post something about. I just recently posted a tweet on the terse memo that apparently was penned by John F. Kennedy, and so I like documents, and I like going through historic documents and how that related to MJ12, and so you can start by looking at one particular facet of the phenomenon that you're really interested in, and that's what I did. I started looking at documents, and then researching them, and or you can go on the complete different tangent if you want to look at videos on YouTube, and or you can join a UFO organization. You can become a member. You get join MUFON. I suppose I should plug MUFON. You get a newsletter every month, I think, and we keep you abreast of what's going on in the world, in terms of what we know. It's difficult to know where to start, because as you say, it's a very steep learning curve, and it just depends upon what you're mainly interested in. I'm mainly interested in animal mutilations because it's physical. I'm mainly interested in physical evidence, in terms of if it's a document, or if it's an animal that's been mutilated, or a crop circle, or something that or pieces of metal that someone's found. And currently I'm working on that as well, on a case in Europe, where metallic fragments are being analysed. I really like looking at physical evidence and trying to relate it back to the phenomenon. But that just depends upon what they're interested in. They might be interested in something entirely different to what I'm interested in the phenomenon. They might be interested in abductions and just go right into abductions. But yeah, it's so hard to figure out what you like. It just go with what you feel you're passionate about in the field, and then read up on it and join an organization and look up YouTube's, go on social media and find out as much as you can about it.
Okay. I love that. All right. Well, sir, where would you like to direct folks to follow yourself, follow MUFON, learn more?
I've got a Twitter site, so if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, they can. And yeah, I mean that's basically where I'm mainly at, the Twitter account.
Okay.
I need more followers. So if you want to follow me, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm there.
Listeners, go follow him. He does put up some really wonderful educational stuff on your Twitter. I've been seeing a bunch of the I
Thank you.
know which document you're talking about. I was just looking
Yeah.
at it earlier today.
Last night.
So, all right, and I will put any pertinent links that you would like in the show notes, of course. To wrap up this episode, would you like to leave us with any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or a piece of advice?
Be passionate about what you do, and if you're following this phenomenon, put your heart into it, and it can reap your rewards in terms of I don't know, just broadening your mind to a degree that you would not believe would be possible. Because I think that something like this, that's one of the biggest pieces of news that in the world. That I mean, it's something that is so amazing to know that we're not alone. I think that basically, just follow your heart and be passionate about what you do. If it's not about UFOs, if you're into paranormal stuff or anything else, just be passionate about it, and it does reap your rewards. Sorry, I don't know whether that sounded okay or not, but
that was awesome.
My best. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Roger Stankovic, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kristen. It's a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Roger, for appearing on the show. And listeners, thank you for tuning in today and showing your support and enthusiasm all season long. This will conclude our Season 5 guest chats and deep dives. We have done the work, guys, and soon we will reap the conclusion. Please do follow and reach out to my guest on Twitter. He also manages the Australia-New Zealand MUFON page over on Facebook. Both are incredible resources, and direct links for both can be found beneath the description in the show notes. Something that was brought up in the hearing that took place on July 26th was how and where can the public go to report their encounters and sightings. MUFON and other organizations like them have been investigating the public's claims for a very long time. They have been the ones willing to listen and laying some really important groundwork behind the scenes in the process. And they are still at it. Let's not forget their valuable contribution and dedication throughout, and that they are a resource to the public as we continue to watch this phenomenon unfold. And one more thing, if I might also add something to one of Roger's answers to the question on how someone new to the subject might get started, because I think more and more folks every day now are going to want to know this phenomenon on a deeper level and are getting involved. And because this was my experience, I wanted to share it with you guys. Like he was saying, as far as finding one aspect of the subject that you are interested in and going from there, I would add, if you really don't know where to begin, I would suggest taking a look at any one of the cases of abduction, sightings, and crashes themselves. If you are thoroughly looking through these cases and considering the evidence and the findings of the researchers, it is inevitable that you will come across one that completely blows you away. You won't be able to help but believe the inherent feeling of truth to it and soak it up. And best of all, want more. And that's it. That's all I wanted to add to that. Just a little pink. Please rate and review if you really enjoyed this guest or any guests that I have had on this season or any other pleasurable aspect of the show's entirety. You are a cool kid for doing so, and I appreciate the gesture so much. Follow the show on all socials at Paranorm Girl Pod, except for Threads. Haven't yet checked that one out. Send your thoughts directly to paranormgirlpod@gmail.com. That is where you can do that, as well as including any thoughts specifically on this episode or suggestions for the future. Speaking of the future is great to keep in mind. Amazing things can happen with your guys' input and a little elbow grease. I enjoy putting my intentions and dreams into action and watch as they later unfold. But sometimes it's best to reflect on what has come before. That can be incredibly validating. It can also be incredibly embarrassing. But both of those reactions can inform your next step. So, let's look back together. Join me next week for Paranorm Girl's 100th episode celebration and look back on just how far we have come. Fair warning, this is a special episode. It's not going to be what you might have come to expect here. It's going to be my opportunity to dress down and get comfy and just play. And I invite you all to that party. I'll be sharing some stories and developments that I may have never revealed before. I don't know, because it's all part of the process that brought us to this moment. Second fair warning, I will be bringing my full quirk next week. So if you don't already realize what a giant dork I am, you will. I'm too old to be embarrassed about being silly anymore. That is a wrap on this week's episode. I'll see you all next week. Be sure that you stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.